Hello, I'm Rhona.
I'm Sami, and we're Aspen Waite People.
And we're going to talk about the value of HR to SMEs.
So who are we? What do we do?
In summary, we're an outsourced HR service, HR meaning human resources, and we're here to help SMEs, which is small to medium-sized enterprises, with their HR management. So really to help them make their HR management more effective, to make their systems and processes robust, and really to help them to manage their people in order to help their business to grow.
So why do you think we need HR, and has HR got a negative image?
Well, I think HR may have a negative image actually, because it seems to be associated with bureaucracy, red tape, wasting lots of time, ticking boxes. But it absolutely is essential because our businesses employ people. And just imagine if all the people you employed actually did what you wanted them to do with the right attitude and they performed exactly as you wished. Wouldn't that make life easier?
Yeah, great working environment, wouldn't it? Fantastic. So HR, what's it all about, Rhona?
Well, HR is all about people. And people, we're all different, aren't we? We all have different priorities, different likes and dislikes, different needs. We're all at different stages of our lives. So, we have to cater for people, but HR has got its roots in legal implications. And that's something we need to be very wary of. So it's really all about making sure your systems and processes have a commercial focus, but are also legally compliant. And so it's really ensuring that we know where the business is going and then making sure that all of the HR systems and processes support that. What I've found with SMEs is there tends to be, or the owner managers or directors of SMEs who have a responsibility for HR, is that they tend to have a fear. They're frightened of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, and unfortunately that often leads to doing nothing at all. So what we try to provide is HR with a commercial focus.
And what sort of processes would you suggest that SMEs put in place? What sort of policies, procedures?
Well, as football seems to be the topic of conversation at the moment, I thought I'd do an analogy with football really. So people need to know what role they're playing within the team. I mean, for example, you wouldn't want a goalie going right up to the other end of the pitch to score a goal. They need to know what their role is, what part they play in the team towards achieving the overall objectives. And then they need to know the rules. We need to have rules, so we need to have a handbook, an employee handbook that states the rules, the standards that we require, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And importantly, they need to be implemented. Hence, the referee with the card system. Yeah. We need to make sure that everyone knows the part they're supposed to play, how they contribute to their team's objectives and the business objectives. And then they need to know the parameters within which they have to work, the rules of the game, the standards that are required, and also the consequences if they break them.
So why does Aspen Waite People focus on small and medium-sized enterprises?
Well, if you think about it, and I'm back to my football analogy here, but in a small business, people are even more vital because if you think, for example, of five-a-side football, you need every one of those 5 people really contributing and knowing what their role is and doing their role to the best of their ability. I mean, you've got a lot of ground to cover with a small number. So in many ways, HR is even more vital in a small business. I mean, everyone within a business usually wants to do a good job. I mean, people like to feel that they're valued, appreciated. They like to feel that they belong. They like to feel that they're recognised for doing a good job. The vast majority of people want that. Unfortunately, there are a minority that just want to grumble and complain, and they seem to get in the way of doing a good job. We don't really want those people in the business. And also there are people that want to do a good job, but they're either out of their depth, or they need further training, or they just aren't capable of doing the job that you want them to do. So we're really there to help you to make sure that everyone in the team, everyone in the small team, everyone in your business is doing the job to the best of their ability. So Aspen Waite People is very much practical advice, but importantly with a commercial focus.
So what do you feel the foundation of HR is in a business then, Rhona? How important is it, and how do we do it?
So it's important that HR doesn't operate in isolation. It has to respond and be aligned with the needs and the goals of the business. If it operates in isolation, it can just be seen as a hindrance, not a help. And then people just think, oh, this is just a waste of time and money. So it's very important that HR is aligned to the needs and the goals. Having said that, the foundations of HR are contracts of employment, and then also the rules, the policies, the processes, and the standards required. And then really it's ensuring that all those things are implemented consistently across the business.
So I guess that means we need a buy-in from all levels, so that's the senior management team, any managers, and also the employees as well.
Absolutely, everybody should buy in. And with contracts of employment, I mean, this is a legal document like any other contract, and so it has to be agreed by both parties, both the employer and the employee. And really, it continues until one of the parties pulls out of the contract. It will remain in existence until either the employee leaves or the employer cancels the contract. And since April 2020, it's been a legal requirement that the contract is in place on the first day of employment, and ideally beforehand, so everyone's clear about what's expected and what actually has been agreed before employment starts. They are the foundations, really, the contracts and the processes, the rules, the standards, the codes of conduct, making sure everyone is aware. It's no good having all of these standards and codes of conduct if nobody knows about them. And I think with contracts and anything like that, any policies, it's really vital that they're in language that everyone understands. The last thing you want is legal gobbledygook that everyone just puts their head in their hands and says, well, I don't know what that means.
So no jargon?
No, exactly. It needs to be clear. And I can't stress enough, it needs to be communicated consistently. The other thing is as well that making sure any rules, especially an employee handbook, is available to everyone from the same source, preferably online, and that it's kept up to date. And if there are any changes, everyone needs to be notified of those changes, and every employee needs to know how they can get hold of a copy of it. One of the major questions, Rhona, what's the rule on this? And every time I send them a copy and say, and it's available here. But yes, so I think they're the foundations. If you can get those in place, then, and that they align with the needs of the business, they're written clearly and they're communicated well and they're understood, then the team is in a very good place to go ahead and achieve the company's goals and help the company grow.
Fantastic. So if we were to talk about contracts, what sort of things would need to be in a contract legally?
Well, there are legal requirements like the name of the employee and the name of the business, and the actual start date and the continuity of employment. The pay, very important, and how often it will be paid, whether weekly or monthly. holidays, and of course there's a statutory minimum, so it can't be less than 20 days of holiday for a full-time person, and also the normally eight bank holidays. Hours of work, total number of hours and days worked and number of hours on each day. It needs to include information about the pension scheme. It needs to include any information about care leave and also any additional leave, such as maternity leave and paternity leave. It needs to contain all of those points that are important to an employee.
Absolutely, and that's probably why it's such a great idea to get that contract to them before their first start date, because there might be niggles there that they want to have a conversation about.
It gives them a chance to have a good look at it. I like to send the employee handbook as well with the contract, because you also need to notify them about what the disciplinary process is and the grievance procedure. And if they get it before they start work, they have every opportunity to have a good look. And if there's anything they've misunderstood or they're not clear about, then we can get it sorted out before that important day one and induction to the business.
So we know that we get a signed copy of the contract. Aspen Waite People, I believe, say that it would be good to have a signed copy of your staff handbook as well. Why is that important to get the staff to read the handbook and then sign it?
I keep getting back to the fact that we need to communicate the standards required, the rules required. And so ensuring that everyone is given a copy and that they're signed to say they read and understand it. They can't say then, oh, well, I wasn't aware. I broke the rule, but I wasn't aware. They've signed that they've actually read the rules and importantly, not only read, but also understand them.
So that sounds like a lot of stuff to put in a contract. Sounds very confusing. Too much to remember, really.
Yeah, well, we will help any owner, manager or director of an SME with that. We will basically discuss with them what they would like in their contract, plus the legal minimum requirements for a contract. And then we will work with them and actually prepare the contracts for them and then send to them for checking and signature. So you're not on your own with Aspen Waite People. We're there not only to advise about the legal requirements, but also what you would like in your business, but then to actually do the work. We're quite happy to roll up our non-existent sleeves and do the work for you. So
you wouldn't be sending the company a template and saying,
the dreaded template. No. We'll just agree what we want in it, and then we'll work from there, and then start to think about the policies and procedures the company wants. And the legal minimums are there must be a grievance policy and a disciplinary policy, which staff have access to.
And I'm guessing it depends on what sort of sector they're in as to what different policies and procedures we would need.
That's right. Although the absolute minimum for any sector is grievance and disciplinary, whether that's in the handbook or a separate policy. Staff have to know how they can access it. It's also worth talking about what training you might want them to do, mandatory training, and whether they might have access to any other training. People also want to know where they're going to work, and if they're going to be asked to go abroad for longer than a month, that needs to be in the contract. And other things that people need to be aware of is the offer of employment conditional on anything such as a DBS check, references, right to work in the country, which of course is important and worth checking, whether they need to have evidence of any certificates of qualifications, and whether they're going to need to complete any training whilst they're in employment. So all of those things, it's all important stuff. It needs to be communicated in a nice, straightforward way, and everyone needs to know precisely where they stand, really.
So I hear in April 2024 there were some major employment law changes. The first one I heard about was flexible working. Can you tell me a bit about how that's changed?
Yeah, there have been quite a few changes, and flexible working was one of the main ones, in that employees can now put in a request for flexible working from day one of their employment, whereas they used to have to be employed for 6 months. They can also put in 2 requests per year, whereas they used to only be able to do one request a year.
So how long does the employer have to reply then?
2 months. They have to come back to the employee within 2 months, and they have to meet with the employee before rejecting the request. And also the employee no longer has to come up with an idea of how this will impact the business. That's not their problem. They don't have to do that. They don't have to justify their flexible working.
So that's a massive change, isn't it? Because the employee had to do the groundwork beforehand.
Yes, and now the employer has to work out how they will cope if they approve the flexible working request.
That's a big change, and if it's a larger company, that could be quite a lot of time consumed for the employers.
And with a smaller company, back to my 5-a-side, it could have quite a big impact on the company, but the employer can reject it.
Yeah.
But they would ideally need to explain their reasons for rejecting it.
And they need to make sure they go through the consultation. It can't just be rejected off the bat.
And maybe they could come up with a different plan that suits both parties. That would be the best thing. Consult, discuss other options, and come up with something that works for both the employer and the employee.
So that's something that we could help with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we can update the policy. We can also help talk the employer through the process and help come up with some ideas maybe they've not thought of, but we've used with other clients. Maybe.
I mean, with Zoom, it doesn't really matter where our SME clients are. We can hop on a Zoom and talk at any time. We're very happy to do that.
So I believe that there's also been some changes in introduction of a carer's leave.
Yes, that's right. It's a day one right now, so no qualifying period in terms of length of employment for employees to request up to a week of unpaid leave to care for someone that's going to need caring for 3 months or more. It's just basically to sort out arrangements, or someone with a disability, or someone who needs care because of old age. So it really gives them up to 1 week of unpaid leave to get things sorted. Because obviously if they were worried about someone that they care for, then mine wouldn't be on the job anyway. So it's best that they have the time to go and get things sorted out.
And that's completely different to dependence leave, isn't it, for children?
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. Sami, I understand as well in April that there have been changes to the paternity leave laws.
Yeah, so before you used to have a 2-week block for your paternity leave, but it wasn't flexible enough. So they've now split it so you can take 2 1-week blocks. They both have to be taken within 52 weeks of the baby being born, but that does give you a little bit more flexibility. You could be there for the first week when the baby's born, and then maybe a little bit later down the line as well. There are other changes that have happened, but obviously here at Aspen Waite People, we're more than happy to have a chat and update your policies and your employee handbook to help you with that.
And I assume as well the employee has to give the employer notice that they're going to take the paternity leave?
Yes, so the employee has to provide a month's notice.
Right. Okay.
Obviously that can change depending on when the baby decides to make an appearance, but there is a month's notice period. Yeah.
And this would apply presumably to babies born after the 6th of April this year?
Yes, absolutely. So the rules were different before the 6th of April 24. But yes, there's been quite a lot of changes.
So Sami, what do you think are the benefits of Aspen Waite People for a SME?
I mean, we are lovely, friendly people. We're always there. We're happy to roll up our sleeves. As you said, our non-existent sleeves.
Yeah, we don't even have any to roll up.
To crack on with the work, so that's great. But also you get to speak to the same people over and over again. With some of the larger HR companies, you can speak to a different person each time.
Yeah.
We are so key on building a rapport with our clients. Like, we know them, we know what they like, they dislike, we know what their sons and daughters' names are. We build that relationship with them, which is really fruitful for HR company to have that kind of rapport. So we do that. We can provide so many different services as well, but because we're focused at SME, we're focused at the right level. So we're not trying to sell you services that you don't actually need.
Yeah.
It's all about the right services for the right size business. So the way we operate at Aspen Waite People is sort of a three-pronged attack. So the first one is our HR audit. So that's where we come in. It's about an hour and a half's meeting. We can do it online, we can do it in person. You know, the Zoom era means that it's fantastically easy for us to connect with anybody, no matter where you are in the UK now. So we'll come on, we'll have a review of your policies, procedures, we'll have a talk to you about your business. We'll figure out
importantly where the business is going and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're trying to see what your aspirations are for the future.
Yeah.
We'll see what you've got in place already, and then we can see how we can help you, how we can build it. What are you missing? What are those key legal obligations that maybe have just slipped through the net, and we can help you fix that. So that's our first prong. The second one is obviously our subscription. So once you've done your HR audit, you then pay a fee to us, which is different depending on the size of your business, how many employees, etc., which we can look at providing you a quote for, and that gives you access to us every single day for that month.
I hear there's a special offer on at the moment, Sami.
There is. So we're trying to entice some new clients our way. So if you sign up with us, you pay for 4 months, you get 2 months free, just as a one-time offer, just to come in, so you're not signing up forever, but you can see what fantastic service that we provide. Yeah. We would encourage everybody to have a look at that, and give us a call and we can set up a meeting.
Yeah.
So our subscription basis, as I say, that's our second prong attack. So we will look and continue to provide you with support with contracts, with changes, employment law changes that come. We will send you an email, we'll update your documents for you, just make sure that you're staying up to date with everything that you need to be staying up to date with. Our third prong is then the bolt-ons. So we provide stuff like an employee handbook. We provide stuff like an employee management system where you can log all of your employees' details, keep track of their holidays, all of that kind of stuff. And it also tags onto health and safety as well, because obviously HR and health and safety do go quite hand in hand. We have other software available, such as the Employee Assistance Programme. We partner with Health Assured, and they provide an employee assistance programme which is free to access for your employees 24/7, 365 days a year. And with the changes that are coming in, we do feel it's really important for you to provide that to your employees.
And that's also anonymous, isn't it? So any employee that phones that, the employer will never get to know about it. And as I understand it, it can be about financial concerns, family concerns, relationship concerns. Yeah. So it's really good support to offer your employees, that they can talk to someone at any time of day or night and just know that there's someone there who's trained to listen and to understand and to give advice if need be. Absolutely,
and most employee assistance programs, especially the ones that we sign up for, it's not just that employee, it's the employee and their spouse as well.
Yes.
So their spouse can also access it. So it's a great way to show that the company is supporting the personal life, the outside, the work-life balance, which is such an in phrase, isn't it? That all employers are trying to show that they appreciate the work-life balance.
Yes, it's supporting the whole person, and really these days with hybrid working, you can't really divorce the person from the job. It's no longer completely separate.
So is it only when somebody new starts that Aspen Waite People can be helpful?
Absolutely not. It's really, we help throughout the life cycle of an employee. So from the important documentation at the beginning, right through to induction, performance management, which is so important these days, that somebody gets at least an hour every 6 months of their supervisor or manager's time to talk purely about their career. So really quality conversation to talk about how they're doing, what's going well, what's not going so well, and what the future might look like. So that's very important. And of course, if there are any issues, whether they're capability issues, disciplinary issues, we can help with all of that. We can help with line in the sand letters if somebody's overstepped the mark and you feel that a kind of conversation isn't enough, then we can help with putting things in writing, right through to if somebody does decide to move on, then getting an exit interview, which we're happy to do that, and that can ask all sorts of questions and show over time any trends that you might want to look at. So we are there for the whole duration of an employee's life cycle at the business.
I think it probably does sound quite daunting to a lot of employers, like disciplinary. They think, oh, I don't know how to handle that. Will Aspen Waite People be able to support an employer through those kind of processes?
Absolutely, and we often get employers phoning up saying, oh, somebody's just done this, and what do I do? So it's really very calmly going through it in bite-sized chunks, one step at a time. Sometimes it's too late though, because there does need to be, if there has been a workplace incident between two or more employees, there do need to get witness statements, signed witness statements. There needs to be a thorough, impartial investigation prior to the disciplinary meeting. So often they leave it too late, and then getting the signed witness statements a week on isn't quite the same as straight away. So it's really good if anyone has an issue like that they phone us straight away, and we can advise right while they're in the middle of the situation, really.
I suppose that's another positive for having an HR consultancy instead of somebody within the business as well, because we are outside of those situations. We have absolutely no entanglement with those employees at all. So we're able to make clear and concise decisions with no emotions attached.
Yes, we're completely impartial, and so it's a completely objective viewpoint. And really with anything like disciplinary, capability, redundancy, we are now touching on legal processes, and it is all about process. Follow the process. If the process hasn't been followed correctly, then if the employee does go to a tribunal, you're in a much more difficult position than if you've gone through the process correctly, kept notes, done an impartial investigation, had the meetings, used all the right letters. Then you're in a much better position, so we can help with every stage of those processes.
I think a lot of employers find those kind of processes very long, drawn out, mundane, and then maybe missing steps, and that is where they're going to fall down, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the number of claims to industrial tribunals has increased a lot since lockdown. Yeah, a lot of employers are finding themselves, faced with the employment tribunal. It's something you really want to avoid because it's just very upsetting. It can drag on for 12 months. It can be very time consuming.
Very costly.
Very costly if you have to bring in an employment lawyer at that stage. So, yeah, to be avoided, I would say, at all costs.
We've had quite a lot of clients talk to us about the changes since lockdown, especially regarding flexible working and hybrid working. Not all companies work in exactly the same way. Is there a way that that an employer can say, no, we're not having hybrid working? Or is it at every opportunity it needs to be investigated? Like, how does Aspen Waite People help support an employer with that?
Well, it's very much down to getting back to the needs of the business. I mean, there would be certain situations where it would be impossible for a restaurant, for example, to look at hybrid working. So it's really down to the needs of the business. And at the end of the day, the preferences of the employer. If hybrid working or even remote working is a possibility, it certainly does widen the choice of employee for you, because I get so many CVs these days where the person wants to work fully remotely or hybrid working. So it is very much the way people want to work these days. But at the end of the day, the employer needs to think about what are the needs of the business, what does he want from the employee, and will it work? Will it work for them both? That has to be uppermost. Why are we employing this person? Do they need to be on the premises?
So obviously we had quite a lot of changes in April this year, and there is a big general election looming. Do you reckon there's going to be changes to employment law after we get that result?
I think, yeah, with HR, the only constant is that employment law will constantly change. As employees' expectations change, employment law changes, as the government changes, there will be changes to employment law. All of the manifestos are out now, and there are clear plans for whichever party gets in and the changes they will make to employment laws. So yes, you can guarantee that it will change, employment law will change, and Aspen Waite People will be there to advise and help to make sure you're up to date and on the right side of the law.
That's good, because I'm sure a lot of employers are going to be very daunted with the changes.
I think so.
And maybe they don't know some of the changes. They've missed out, and that is exactly where we come in.
Yeah.
Is that we will go, this is what you need to be aware of. These are the changes that need to be made. Let's help you make.
And we'll do mail shots to all of our clients to say, right, these are the changes. This is when they're coming in. And just reminders if you want us to look at your handbook, your contracts. We're here to help. So they can concentrate on running the business and making the business grow, which is what it's all about, really. We're there to help.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks to Rhona, we've had a great chat. If anything that we've talked about has piqued your interest, you've got any more questions, or you just fancy a quick free consultation with us, do check out our website, www.aspenwaitepeople.co.uk. Drop us an email on hello@aspenwaitepeople.co.uk. We've got a blog on the website. We constantly update there with good, exciting things that are happening in the world of HR, and we'd love to hear from you. So drop us an email.